Your gut is not a digestive tube. It's a rainforest that needs careful fertilization.
The brain is not an absolute commander. More often, it's a receiver for signals from the gut.
Instead of just trying to think positive, try blocking inflammatory signals through your diet. First,
have you ever felt this way? When you are under heavy stress or feeling down, your stomach always acts up first. Many people think it is just indigestion caused by stress. But what if I told you that your brain is actually just a receiver, and the real commander who directs your emotions, energy, and even determines whether you might get Parkinson's or depression is actually hidden in your gut?
Wait a second, Nai. This sounds a bit mystical. Isn't the brain the supreme commander? How did it get hijacked? By those strange bacteria in the intestines. Does this mean when I want to eat dessert this afternoon, it is not actually me who wants it, but my bacteria?
In a way, you actually guessed right. Today's topic is based on the research of Professor Tim Spector, an expert in epidemiology, the gut-brain axis revolution. We are going to completely overturn the old idea that the brain operates independently of the body. And look at how the gut microbiome, this microchemical factory inside you, influences your brain health like a puppeteer through the nervous and immune systems. For a long time, the medical community held a Cartesian view, believing the brain was protected by the blood-brain barrier like an island behind an iron curtain. But Professor Spector pointed out that we have been wrong for decades. The vagus nerve, which connects the gut and the brain, is actually an extremely busy information superhighway. The most shocking discovery is that 80% of the signals on this road travel from the gut to the brain, while commands from the brain downwards only account for
80% vs 20%. That doesn't seem right. Isn't that like a soldier on the front line, constantly sending briefings to headquarters? And headquarters has to accept them all. So how do these gut signals turn into our emotions?
That is the key. When your gut microbiome is out of balance, meaning the bad bacteria have the upper hand, they trigger inflammation. At this time, the immune system releases inflammatory molecules. Once the brain receives these signals, it immediately starts sickness behavior mode. You will feel fatigued, low in mood, and antisocial. The brain thinks you are fighting an infection and makes you save energy. Therefore, many people's depression and anxiety are essentially immune metabolic issues.
If you say emotions are affected, I can barely accept that. But mentioning that a serious brain disease like Parkinson's is also related to the gut, isn't that a bit too far ahead?
This is exactly the most shocking part for the scientific community. Epidemiological data shows that many Parkinson's patients start having severe constipation 10 years before diagnosis. Research found that the misfolded proteins that cause the disease actually appear first in the enteric gut nerves.
Are you saying that these toxic proteins are like climbing a ladder, crawling from the gut into the brain along the vagus nerve over many years?
Exactly. After years of migration, they finally take root in the brain. This means that if we can intervene in gut health through diet at an early stage, we could theoretically cut off the path of the disease to the brain, thereby preventing or delaying these devastating diseases. This is no longer just a question of what to eat to be healthier. It is about preventing neurodegenerative diseases. We need to change our mental model of food. Don't think of the gut as a digestive tube. See it as an ecosystem, a rainforest. There are 40 to 100 trillion microbes living in your gut. They are your internal chemical factories and pharmacies.
So, my body is actually a supersized pet store, and everything I eat every day is actually feeding these trillions of little pets.
A very vivid analogy. Every kind of bacteria has its own dietary preference. For example, there is a bacteria called Larinobacter that is extremely fond of coffee. When you drink coffee, they go into a frenzy celebrate and produce metabolites that enter the blood. This might be the actual biological mechanism by which coffee reduces heart disease risk. Conversely, if you don't eat a certain food for a long time, like beans, the bacterial population that breaks down beans will shrink or go extinct. This explains why suddenly eating them after a long time causes gas, because you lack the workers to handle them.
It sounds like diversity is king. So how specifically should we eat? I've heard of 5 fruits and vegetables a day, but Professor Spector seems to have a tougher standard.
Yes, the gold standard now is 30 types of plants per week. Note that this doesn't just include vegetables and fruits, but also nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, beans, and whole grains. Each plant contains unique polyphenols and fiber structures that feed specific bacterial communities.
30 types sounds like a lot, but if I have mixed grain porridge with several kinds of nuts for breakfast and sprinkle some cinnamon powder, wouldn't I knock out 5 or 6 types at once?
Exactly. That is how you add them up. Besides 30 plants, there is the famous 4K fermented food protocol, kefir, kimchi, kraut, sauerkraut, and kombucha. A key study from Stanford University showed that after daily consumption of fermented foods for several weeks, participants' inflammatory markers dropped by 25%, and gut microbial diversity increased significantly. Even dead bacteria fragments can tickle your immune system in the gut, sending anti-inflammatory signals.
So, those low-fat fruit yogurts or supermarket whole wheat breads, labeled as healthy, should be our good allies, right?
On the contrary, those are the biggest traps. Ultra-processed foods, UPFs, often use emulsifiers to replace the mouthfeel of fat. Emulsifiers are like dish soap. They wash away the protective mucus layer on the gut wall, allowing microbes to touch the gut wall directly, triggering inflammation, also known as leaky gut.
I see. So don't just look at the ads on the front of the package. Look at the ingredient list on the back. If it contains more than 5 ingredients you can't find in your home kitchen, then basically consider it poison for your gut microbes.
The last point is very important. Your gut needs off-duty time. There is a cleaning crew in the gut called the MMC, migrating motor complex. This cleaning mechanism only starts when you are in a completely fasted state.
So, is the professor suggesting we try that 16 to 8 intermittent fasting? What should I do if I am the kind of person who can live without midnight snacks?
It doesn't have to be that extreme. The suggestion is to keep an overnight fast of 12 to 14 hours every day. If you finish your last bite at 8 p.m., then don't consume anything with calories except black coffee or water before 10 a.m. the next day. This gives the gut time to repair its lining. Especially refuse late night eating, because that is when the gut's biological clock is most fragile. Late night snacks directly cause the next day brain fog and fatigue. To summarize our gut revolution today, first, see food as fertilizer for microbes, pursuing a variety of colors and natural bitterness. Second, try to achieve the goal of 30 plants a week and 3 servings of fermented food a day. Finally, leave at least a 12-hour rest window for your gut. When you feel stressed or anxious, don't just try to solve it by thinking positively. Try to block the path of inflammation signals from the gut to the brain through diet.
Indeed. I used to think the brain was a proud artist, but now I know it is more like a commander who relies on logistical supplies. Take care of those trillions of little lives in your belly, and they will take care of your emotions and brain in return. Thanks for listening to today's program. I hope everyone can leave enough overtime for your gut cleaners tonight. See you next time.